Sitting atop the NBA in offensive rating are four teams: the Warriors, Raptors, Rockets, and Spurs. While each of these teams have very distinct rosters with explosive players at different positions, there are some interesting parallels and differences that exist between all four. While the Warriors use Steph Curry and Kevin Durant to power a long-distance attack, the Raptors use the ISO-heavy stylings of Lowry and DeRozan. The Rockets maximize the singular talents of James Harden, while the Spurs rely heavily on the ever-improving Kawhi Leonard. But it's not just personnel that drives a team's success. It's also their system and philosophy, overseen by the head coaches. Mike D'Antoni is almost singularly responsible for the explosion of speed and ball movement in half-court offenses today, something that Popovich absorbed, mutated, and recreated. Kerr had the benefit of playing for both Popovich and Phil Jackson, and Dwayne Casey studied under Rick Carlisle. So let's dig into the synergy stats to see how each of these teams prefers to attack. And though you might not be surprised at the common threads, there are some outliers that should raise an eyebrow or two. First off, there are 9 basic play types we'll be looking at: transition, pick and roll ball handler, pick and roll roll man, spot up, off screen, handoff, cut, post up, and isolation. And when we chart the frequency that these 4 teams use these play types for scores, we get an interesting picture. The play type that stays consistent the most across all 4 teams is the spot up. As you can see, each team's graph juts out to the bottom right of the screen. In a spot up, you can either catch and shoot from the perimeter, or you can use the threat of the shot to get into the paint for a drive. The Spurs get this the most, leading by a hair, the Rockets right behind them, and the Raptors and Warriors trailing. For the Spurs, Kawhi Leonard gets the most spot-ups, and gets most of them out of the side-to-side motion of their offense, where the defense gets compacted by ball movement and penetration. And Kawhi isn't limited to three-point shots in these actions, as he's developed a lethal mid-range game where he can manufacture his shot against anyone. They also like to use the Aldridge post-up to attract the moths to the flame, then kick out across the perimeter, and check the nice shot fake sidestep 3-ball. And while it's rare to see Kawhi spot up and get all the way to the hoop, it's sure explosive when he can find the seam in the lane for the finish. Patty Mills is also very good out of the spot up, and it should come as no surprise. This sharpshooter never stops moving, and the Spurs again use an Aldridge post-up to suck in the defense, then great ball movement for the open corner 3. Just look at the kind of ball movement the Spurs get with no one holding it for more than a second, and the defense can't keep up. Mills has also developed a floater game and has been very solid with it all season. And he's got one of the fastest releases in the NBA, so even if you do get there in time, it might not matter one bit. The Rockets' Eric Gordon has had a career resurgence, thanks in large part to the spacing and kicking of the offense. He gets tons of opportunities to get to the spot and wait for the pass off the drive, and his three-point shooting has been elite. Of course, James Harden is responsible for most of the Rockets' offensive success, and their basic pick and roll has tons of gravity, and Harden isn't shy about passing that rock. There isn't anyone better at firing a skip pass across the court, and this opens up tons of shots for guys like Gordon to hop into. Trevor Ariza has also mastered the catch and shoot 3, and with his size, it doesn't really matter how close the defender is. And Mike D'Antoni has made this group into very willing passers who hunt for the best possible three-point shot they can get. More Harden skip pass goodness, and this time it opens it up for another elite shooter in Ryan Anderson, who's shooting a career high from three-point land with shots like these. And this is a D'Antoni staple. Out of the pick and roll, Harden waits for the roll man to clear before firing this pass to the flat for another open 3. And Harden has this unique ability to snap a pass to a shooter so fast that defense doesn't have time to react, and Anderson gets another open look and splash. There's definitely a bit of a gap in the frequency between the Rockets and Spurs and the Toronto Raptors. Patrick Patterson gets the most out of any of the Raptors and is a little bit above average, as his three-point percentage indicates as well. It's clear the offense uses the gravity of DeRozan to get him these open shots, and he's good enough to command the attention of the defense to the point where defenders can't ignore him to load up on Lowry and DeRozan, for he will make them pay. The vast majority of Carroll's spot-ups are three-point shots, and he is also, like Patterson, a little above average and gets a lot of really good looks from beyond the arc. Unfortunately, he hasn't been consistent on the open ones, and as a result, his percentage isn't higher. But he will continue to get these types of open looks, and I'm sure the Raptors will live with his 38% from beyond the arc, but I suspect his open three percentage will need to improve if the team wants to take a jump to the next level. Terrence Ross has been effective in the spot up, and he is very balanced between knocking down the three ball when the defense is focused on DeRozan and using a good shot fake to get into the lane for a nice floater game. And he's probably the most athletic and explosive player on the Raptors and can get all the way to the rim on occasion. Kyle Lowry is by far their best spot-up shooter, and when I say shooter, I mean that. Over the last 12 games, the only spot-up shots he has made have been threes, and these types of threes are all manner of difficulty as he can find openings for good looks, but also knock down some really tough ones as well. And that brings us to the Warriors, who surprised me a bit that they were so far behind the others in the spot-up category. It should come as no surprise that Klay Thompson gets the most of these opportunities, but what is shocking is that he's in the 36th percentile. Out of the 86 players who have at least 100 spot-ups, he's ranked 68th, and he's been getting a ton of great looks out of the Warriors' supreme pace and space attack. There isn't much explanation as to why these wide open shots don't go down, but it is something they'd better get a handle on sooner than later, or else they might have more fourth quarter meltdowns where they get the shots they want but just don't hit them. Draymond is up next, and he also gets a ton of open threes when Klay, Steph, and KD take the focus of the defense. He has struggled mightily from the three-point line this year overall, but he is a respectable 38% on spot-ups, and you can see how he can find a good rhythm on these kickouts. And KD has been elite on the spot-up, and Steph has been instrumental in sucking in the defense and letting him find the open spot for the jumpers. The first anomaly that stands out in this graph is how much the Raptors use the pick-and-roll ball handler. They lead the league in the percentage of time they use this category, and they're also ranked first in efficiency. Interestingly, it's not Kyle Lowry who uses the most of these, and it's not even close. DeMar DeRozan has had a career year, and the Raptors find lots of ways to get him into the pick and roll, like this little weave before he unleashes his patented Eurostep floater. DeRozan has mastered all manner of mid-range shots and loves to step back along the right baseline, or hop into a pull-up without it mattering how close the defender is. Kyle Lowry is the best pick-and-roll player on the team, and it's remarkable how often his short stature doesn't get in the way of him finishing at the rim. It doesn't seem to matter how big the defender is back there, he finds a way to gently lay it up and over. Here's the weave into pick and roll for him, and you give him enough daylight, he's going to pull from behind the arc, where he's destroying it this year, and these tend to be contested shots off the hop. While the Raptors use more pick and rolls than anyone else, the Warriors use the least, and this is the tip of the iceberg for what makes the Warriors so different than just about any other team in the NBA. You would think a team with Curry and Durant would get tons of shots out of the pick and roll, but in reality, they rely on a few other unique ways to score that limits how often the pick and roll creates shots for them. While Curry uses almost half of all their pick and rolls, it's a huge shock that he only ranks in the 35th percentile on them, way below average. For perspective, last year, he was number 1 in the league. A big issue is his percentage from three off the dribble. Many people picture him pulling up for wild threes off the break, but he gets more of them from the pick and roll when the big sags too far down, and his off the dribble threes have been below 30% this year. A huge reason for the dip in his rating. The question is, will there be a regression back to his normal average? His shot selection isn't the issue, and the mechanics look the same, so this is a big question mark. Kevin Durant hasn't had this issue since he doesn't take many threes out of the pick and roll. He simply attacks the defense and takes what they give him. They like to run this zipper cut for him into a pick and roll, and Steve Nash just showed him the stutter step pull-up. They find KD in a lot of drag screens early in the offense, and there isn't much you can do if he's got both feet in the lane. And he's got every type of finish you need with either hand, like this inside hand soft off the glass after the blow-by of the big. The next anomaly on this chart is the cut category. To put it in perspective, the Warriors are averaging over 15 cuts per game for shots, The next team on the frequency of cuts list is Milwaukee at just under 11. The gap is enormous, and they rank first in points per possession as well. It makes sense that Klay leads the team in total number of cuts, and he gets them from so many different ways. This is pinch post right out of the triangle offense, and normally he'd use the double pin down, but he reads his defender is way behind, so he finds the open area for a nifty reverse. He also gets a ton of splits with Curry, and the defense never seems to know which player to stick to, and Klay takes advantage. Their favorite is the low post split, where after entering the ball down low, Klay screens at the elbow before cutting back door. Teams should be ready for it by now, yet for 3 years, he has been killing teams with it. While many teams run motion weak into horns, the Warriors tend to get better spacing with all their shooters, and Klay uses great change of pace to bring his man up and over the weak side elbow, and David West has good vision to identify this cut, be patient, then deliver the ball right on the money. JaVale McGee relies on this to get most of his shots, as he just needs to be in the right spot and the offense will generate him a cut. Here's the zipper for Curry into pick and roll, and they release pressure on the right side before finding McGee on the alley-oop. This time, it's the roll man who finds McGee for the lob. Curry has done a nice job finding him on his drives into the middle, and JaVale knows what to do with it when he gets it. And Kevin Durant has also been cutting to the hoop. Off the high post split, Curry sets a great screen, and it's a simple play from there. One of the reasons Durant came here was to get moving in a fluid offense. The ball screen for Curry gets him rolling, pressure release to Draymond, and this is basketball. And there's a never-ending series of options for him to turn to. Instead of using the pin down, he can read and react, and Draymond has a real talent for the high post pass. And Klay isn't the only one who gets the low post split backdoor cut. Durant finds a huge opening and another easy dunk. Moving back to the chart, we see the Spurs stand out in number of post-ups, which makes sense since they have LaMarcus Aldridge and Pau Gasol playing heavy minutes. What is surprising is that they are merely average in their efficiency, making you wonder if Popovich might cut down on them. Aldridge posts up almost exclusively on the left block and favors turning over his right shoulder for turnaround shots like this. He does like to go to the jump hook into the middle of the lane over his left shoulder too, but these shots tend to be more difficult since he's going back into the help defense. And since he doesn't attack on the catch, he gives the defense time to shift over and pressure these shots. Pau Gasol, on the other hand, has been downright bad in the post-up. He is ranked in the 32nd percentile, meaning of the 54 players with at least 50 post-ups, he's ranked 40th. And it's really the right block that is killing him. He can't go to his left into the middle as well anymore. So he's incorporated the Dirk leg, but it simply hasn't gone well for him with his shot at all because he can't get separation. And his lefty hook from that side has deserted him as well, as he can't find the balance, lift, or enough touch to get these shots to fall this year. It's no surprise that the Rockets lead this group in isolation frequency since they've got James Harden. And strangely, he's only been a little above average this year. One reason is that he takes mostly threes out of his ISOs, and these tend to be the toughest kinds of shots you can take. Even with the switch and mismatch of the big man on him, some of these bigs are mobile, and sometimes the switch gets him an even better defender to contest these long shots. And because these plays take so long to develop, the shot clock is usually working against him as well. The Rockets are ranked 5th in ISO frequency, while the Raptors are right behind them at 7th, primarily due to DeRozan's ability to break down his man one-on-one. And he's the complete opposite of Harden. He gets virtually no threes off of isolation, almost no open shots from the mid-range, yet has been consistent all year with these. He can do his damage with tricky moves that get him daylight from the mid-range area, and his jumper is old school but very smooth. Or he can get to the basket where he's got a very wide range of finishes, including some impressive makes with his left hand. The Warriors and Spurs value quick ball and player movement, so have stayed away from the isolation a lot more. The Warriors are 25th and Spurs 28th in isolation frequency, although with Kevin Durant, Golden State is ranked 2nd in efficiency on these. And he's entertaining the crowd with all manner of dribble combinations before letting the shots fly. And like DeRozan, he does not shoot threes out of his isolations much at all. And when they find a mismatch and spread the floor with their shooters, there simply isn't any help, and it's almost impossible to stop him when he has so many different kinds of moves. Oh, he's 7 feet tall too. The Spurs are almost dead last in both frequency and efficiency in the isolation, and it's Kawhi who takes almost half of them and is ranked below average in efficiency. The Spurs like to get Kawhi exploiting mismatches, usually on the right side where he does his best scoring. But on the left side, he struggles, unable to complete the nice moves more from this side than anywhere else. If you look at the off-screen category, it's another anomaly for the Warriors, who run this action a whopping 15 times a game. In terms of frequency, the Mavericks are in second place at only 10 times a game. And with the kind of action and screens they set, it's no wonder they are ranked second in efficiency just behind the Thunder, who get shots off screens a measly twice per game. Klay Thompson again gets the most of these types of shots, and the key here is that he gets 20 feet to sprint for open shots, often around multiple screens. Zaza has picked up where Bogut left off, setting some serious wood on his screens to free up Klay for open jumpers. And when he's not laying people out, he's getting in their way enough to let Klay quick release splash. But when the screens are slipped before the contact, these shots don't go in often, and Durant hasn't proven he's willing to mix it up and get in the defender's way. And as a result, by Klay's standards, he's having a subpar year overall coming off screens. Steph Curry has not had a subpar year, simply feasting on this action from all over the court, getting open looks from three, then curling to the hoop when his man trails, and also finding looks in the mid-range when that's what the defense gives him. So let's take a step back and analyze this graph. As I have shown, the biggest outlier are the Warriors, a team that gets it done not by using the pick and roll or even the spot up. They attack in a rather old school way, with cutting and off-ball screens. The Rockets do not use the post up at all, as they're all about threes with the spot up and transition. The Raptors are a bit lopsided with their pick and roll and spot up attack, and the Spurs utilize the post up and the roll man in very unique ways. If we look at the rankings in terms of efficiency, the Raptors paint a dominating picture at the very top of 6 categories, while the Warriors have dominated in the bottom half, which corresponds to the ball and player movement categories. The Rockets are great on the right side with a sharp increase in cuts, and the Spurs only stand out in spot up and off screens. So there you have it, sports fans. There are lots of ways to fill the hoop, and it's fascinating to compare and contrast how the best of the best are doing it on a nightly basis. With 4 distinct styles and philosophies, it's not easy to prepare for any of these teams, and we're in for a real treat once the playoffs start.